Hi guys! Welcome to Alexa Plays Games presents 2v2 Brawl for a Brawl Pass. I am your host, Alexa from Alexa Plays Games. Before we hop into some highlights, I just wanted to give you a rundown of the guidelines and such. For this tournament, we once again had 4 universal bans, which the participants voted on prior to the tournaments. I also decided, since the last tournament, some people didn't like the blind drafting, that I would try Power Match this time. Power Match allowed the participants to ban one brawler and pick one brawler, much like Ranked, only 2v2. It was also best out of 5, 3-round wins advance. The universal bans were Juju, Barry, Kit, Lou, Meeple, and Ollie. The winners of the championship both won a Brawl Pass, but everyone who made it to the championship would become champions in my server and gain celebrity access. So without further ado, let's hop into the first match. The maps were randomized, so they were first matched with parallel plays. This map is very tricky, I'd say. The only way to win on this map is to play a thrower for defense and someone aggressive who can counter throwers on the other team. Both of my go-tos on this map, Juju and Barry, were banned, however, so it was interesting to see what the players ended up drafting. RT is definitely the safest best of both worlds pick on this map. He deals so much damage, and the shield he gains from his tank form makes him almost impossible to kill. So if you wanted to pick someone as a very safe first pick, that would be RT. Surge and Nita, unfortunately, are just very super dependent. If they can't charge up their supers, they can't do much, meaning if RT and Barley just camp behind a wall, there isn't much they can do. Assuming they had second pick, it would have been smart to pick someone who can counter throwers but also deal with aggression, much like Mo, but even someone who could just focus on the potential thrower pick would still have given them a better chance than Surge and Nita, however. So the Micos and Paris might have been better off going Miko. But assuming they thought the Monkey or Edgar or any other thrower counter was too risky, when it comes to Hot Zone, it's important to switch up your strategies. If you have RT camping on your zone, and there's nothing you can do about it, go pinch the Barley next round and dominate their zone. That would force RT to come out from behind his wall and defend, making it easier for Nita and Surge to charge up their supers. Next, they got matched with Bounty, No Excuses. Now, I included this map because I feel like, for the sharpshooter specialist at least, players would get a real test of their mechanical skill. It's honestly surprising to me that they didn't ban Nani though, but I kinda get it. Good Nanis are not common because she takes a lot of skill to aim, since her basic is not like other sharpshooters, but Nani is the best Piper counter, or just sniper counter in the game, and she always will be, no matter her standing in the meta, as long as she has her range and she has her return to sender gadget. She takes other sharpshooters' strengths and she turns them into weaknesses, especially Piper. Piper's mechanics reward you for hitting your shots at max range, but Nani's return to sender will just send all of that damage back at Piper. With Abe doing his job well, poking them to death with the Gene and denying their healing, and Scrappy going all in on the Nani, Micos and Paris had an uphill battle to climb. In Gem Grab, it seems both teams picked classic comps. Huck 2 went with a Poco aggro comp, while the Micos went with 8-bit Gem Carrier and Otis Lane. However, it makes me sad that Huck 2 stole Poco from Fox Light, but maybe we'll get to see the best Poco main in action next tournament. I honestly can't tell who had first pick with this one, so I can't speculate on draft order, but with these two classic comps, it depends on if the Hawk 2 have good enough timing to steal the gems away in an aggro strike, or if the Micos can manage to hold on to the gems and deny their aggression. 8-Bit is a crazy good mid-gem carrier because his turret provides a damage boost for his lane teammates, not to mention with his teleport gadget, he can escape to safety easily with the gems. Otis is also good for denying aggression, but Kenji is a unique case because he has a super which can make him invincible for God knows what reason. So if you don't time Otis's super for the right moment and Kenji manages to super over it, it's pretty worthless. Not to mention Poco's second gadget can protect Kenji from mutes, but Kenji can't be protected from pure damage. So perhaps if they paired 8-Bit with someone who has pure damage output like Griff, who would definitely benefit a lot more than Otis from the 8-Bit turret, it would have been much easier to defend. Next we have the Jobless trio versus FreeLose. That's right, you might be wondering, how did a trio sneak into your 2v2 tournament, Alexa? Well, in case you hear me sounding very salty in the rest of this video, I figured now I should address the elephant in the room. First, keep in mind, this is a tournament for a Brawl Pass, which is $10 USD. Okay, I did not think I'd have to be worried about cheating in a tournament where the prize is worth $10. But here we are. The problem arose, I guess, because I allowed subs. It was the first team tournament I've done, and some people expressed concerns over their teammate possibly not being able to make it, so in the case of someone not being able to make it, I allowed subs. The Jobless trio, who called themselves something else, but this name is much more fitting for them, recruited a 120k player so that the two Masters players, mind you, Masters players, could guarantee a spot for themselves in the championship. They made up excuses as to why one or the other could not play that match, so their 120k teammate could carry them against mostly legendary players, and they didn't have to play the entire tournament fairly. That's right, Zix and Aeon, two Masters players, concocted this scheme. To repeat, Zix, formerly known as Jobless, and Aeon, two Masters players, felt the need to cheat. But let's yap about this draft instead from this point on, and not just how pathetic that is. So, Brock and Angelo are two classically good picks on this map, while Pearl and Byron are two classically good picks in Knockout in general. Brock can break that wall to their spawn, giving his team much needed space. Angelo has much needed mobility with his ability to walk on water, and also he's an annoying mosquito. Enough said. Pearly Whirly and the Byrai have a lot of synergy, seeing as she is relatively tanky and Byron can heal her up. Both comps are very good for this map, so it's unsurprising that it went back and forth. Ooh! Lex's jukies to get back into range were absolutely majestic, but Pearly really relies on grass and surprise attack to level the playing field between her and long-range sharpshooters, so the odds just were not in his favor. Next, they got matched with my personal favorite map, Ring of Fire. I definitely feel like this time, the Jobless trio outdrafted FreeLose. Again, I can't be sure of what the draft order was based on the picks, because first pick Amber is always a smart idea, but you could also easily first pick Penny. Whatever the case, Pam and Penny are traditionally very good on this map. Pretty much any comp with healing is preferred on this map, so I'd say since Pam has good range, she is always a very good option, even though she's not very good in the meta right now. While I will never hate on an Ambi pick in Ring of Fire, this is her map after all, I will hate on the Jessie pick, but no matter the draft order, Jessie just doesn't cook on this map. She's my main, I know. You really need walls to place her turret behind so she can establish area control, and she really doesn't have that on this map. You can try some sneaky spawn invasion and spawn trapping strats with her, and in theory, she counters Pam's turret and Penny's barrel and turrets, but not if they're safely tucked behind walls and Jessie can't get to them. Also, I felt like FreeLose was lacking aggression, which is not surprising because this is EMEA we're talking about, but still. And I can't be sure if they had last pick or not, but if they did, they should have picked someone aggressive to get into the enemy spawn and wreak some havoc. Even if they kept losing to Penny and Pam, the constant aggression and invasion could have been enough of a distraction to allow Amber to get onto the zone and do her thing. Not to mention, once Penny and Pam use up their gadgets, they're very weak into aggression. Next, there was a round in Slayer's Paradise, but apparently EMEA is way too passive to play Wipeout. So it was back and forth mostly between Ian and Lex until I told Lex to throw, and we moved on to Gem Grab. And I got rid of Wipeout for the rest of the tournament. To make up for a loss of time, we had to stack 2 matches, so I was only able to record one of the games for each of these matches. But Gem Grab was also pretty back and forth. But while FreeLose remained relatively passive with Gus and Stu for some added aggression, Ian went all in on the aggression with Ash. Gus's shield makes him an amazing gem carrier, but unfortunately for FreeLose, Gus's shield was not enough to protect their gems from a hypercharged and aggressive Ash. Interesting how Aeon, though, thought it was cute to spin on them when he was getting hard carried the whole game, but okay. Yeah, your 1 kill definitely means you did enough to spin on them, Aeon. The logic of cheaters, I can't. Hawk 2, having advanced to the next round, would now face an incredibly tough opponent, Team Guzica. I looked it up and I'm pretty sure that means something very silly, but I'm not positive, so I'm not going to say what I think it is here just in case I'm wrong. But I digress. It seems relatively straightforward who had first pick, since it seems like Colette would really be only picked to counter. Stu is a very, very safe first pick in Brawl Ball. With 1 hit to charge a super, he can easily slide the ball into the net with a super shot, especially on a map which leaves the goal open to trick shottery like Sunny Soccer. I think the Ash Byron comp could have worked, but perhaps fighting fire with fire by going Melody would have been a better way to counter Stu in Brawl Ball at least. I don't know who got banned, but Melody counters the throwers that are common on this map, and she has 3 supers to work with to get the ball into the net even faster than Stu. Knockout is definitely more skill-based than Brawl Ball, but this time it seems very obvious who had last pick again. Throwers are traditionally only last pick brawlers, specifically because they're incredibly easy to counter, either with extreme aggression or, in this case, with the destruction of their walls. Rico too also relies on walls to really do his obnoxious bouncy balls of doom. So while it seems like Gus was an incredibly safe pick, there were many other long-ranged options that would have been good into Gus and easily outranged him, like Belle for instance, if Piper and Nani were both banned. Belle is mostly only countered by aggression, so Rico would have also been a very solid pick to pair with her in case they needed someone to handle an assassin or tank and cover their home lane. But pairing a thrower with Rico was just a recipe for disaster, since they're both countered by the same thing, Brock's wall breaks. Once more, assuming that Team Guzica had first pick, which Bae looks like a first pick to me, that does not mean there aren't tons of brawlers who are good into her and hard to counter on this map. I asked Philip and he gave me a whole list. Byron, Belle, Gus, Max, Stu, Gray, RT, Pam, Kenji, Draco, Macy, Penny, Janet, Angelo. You get the gist. Well, he also mentioned Kid, Juju, and Lou, but they were banned. But you know what I mean. Unfortunately for Hawk 2, Piper and Tara are neither very safe, hard to counter picks on this map. Piper is hard to counter in passive modes, but she can be very easy to counter in hot zone. I know a lot of you guys like to pick Piper on this map, but might I just gently remind you guys, the objective is to get on the zone. Piper is very squishy and can only really stand back and snipe people down, because it's difficult for her to stand on the zone for an extended period of time, so she needs someone else to do that for her. You can also counter her with brawlers who can get zone time, specifically speed demons. Max, Stu, Kenji, anyone with good movement can dodge her shots while standing on the zone. Then Tara, I can see what they were going for. They wanted Tara to spawn Camp Bay and overwhelm her with Tara's shades, which would have been a good last pick. But the problem with Tara is you can't pick her earlier than that because she's very easy to counter, especially by the Queen of Hot Zone and ruler of this map, Amber. Tara is not getting close to either of them, with Amber destroying all of her grass and blowing straight through her shades. It's just not happening. I'm mostly disappointed though, because we didn't get to see Ave on his beloved Fang on this map, since this is Fang's best hot zone map. Fang is easy to counter, so I get it, but maybe we'll get to see the best Fang main in EMEA next tournament. Now, unfortunately for Piper's feat, they have to beat one 120k player and one player who just wants to be carried to advance to the next round, seeing as Zix, I repeat, a Masters player, requires carries to beat legendary players. But enough about how sad that is, let's get back to drafting. I'm not exactly sure who had first pick, but I'm going to assume it was Piper's feat, seeing as playing Buzz into Rico is just generally a bad idea. I think they went Colt's first pick because Colt can break open the map, but the thing about Colt is he just doesn't synergize well with Rico, since Rico needs the walls to wreak bouncy ball mayhem. Now, this is hindsight is 2020 for sure, but I think Stu first pick would have been a better pick on this map. You can use his speed turret if you end up wanting to keep the walls, and you can use his wall break if you want to break open the map instead. But the Jobless trio did a very good job making second pick safe picks. Macy is pretty good into range if you have good aim, and she hard counters aggression. Buzz is a good goal scorer, who even if he gets countered by the other team, if he has good timing, he can super over to the goal and score before his counters can even stop him. Rico was a good counter to Buzz, he's obnoxious here, but if they already picked Colt, they could have instead gone with another brawler who thrives on open maps and can help break everything open, like Griff. Griff plays well into both Macy and Buzz. Here it seems pretty obvious that the Jobless trio got first and last pick, with Gus being a safe first pick gem carrier and Ash being a ridiculously good counter pick. However, while I don't think Penny or Rico are bad picks per se, I think there were just better picks out there. This map attracts a lot of aggression because there's a lot of grass near the center. Rico is usually a good pick on this map in 3v3 because he can hold down one lane by himself very easily, but it would be very hard for him to control the mid and his lane because it's a wider open space. Not lacking walls, but just not very concentrated walls, so it's a place where he just wouldn't shine best. So say Rico locks down one lane for you, as he usually does, that would mean your gem carrier would then need to be able to at least cover two lanes, cover the mid and the other side lane, with vision support of some kind. You could break the grass or provide some visibility, like with Janet's gadget. Janet is probably not going to beat an Ash all by herself, but would be able to fly away with the gems. Penny is a good mid, don't get me wrong, but she doesn't have that element of invincibility that a Gus or a Janet super would provide. So while I don't think she's a bad pick in 3v3, I think without a third teammate locking down the other lane, Penny would definitely struggle on this map, and Rico just didn't have the ability to lock down the mid and a lane to make up for it. And now my favorite map, which honestly people seem to be struggling to draft for this one. I think after being traumatized by Ashe last round, Piper's feet decided to go Colette to deter the aggression. But the thing is that there are a lot of tank counters that are good in hot zone. Colette can work. I'm not saying she can't, but you don't generally draft Colette unless it's to directly counter a brawler that has already been picked, not as a prediction counter. But in hot zone, you can go Griff, Gale, Maisie, Amber, Spike, 8-Bit, even Meg and the Crab, even though they've fallen off quite a bit to counter aggression, but also still maintain control over the zone against brawlers of other classes. Then, if you're worried they'll be outranged, you can pair them with healing support or speed support from Max, Byron, Poco, Pam, even Gray, who has now become even more broken in hot zone with his hypercharge. But honestly, both Colette and Angelo are weak into pets, and with Penny, Salty Barrels, and her turret placed behind a wall, that would mean the Jobless trio had an element of control that Colette would struggle to provide on her own end. But one thing I don't understand here is playing Angelo with the speed star power on this map. This is a hot zone, not knockout. The objective is to be on the zone, not just to stay alive. Not to mention, he barely has any water to work with here, and healing is a cornerstone of hot zone. So yes, that star power helps Angelo dodge Piper, but it also means he won't be able to stand on the zone while he could heal and dodge with his super on the zone with his other star power. So yeah, I think they got outdrafted, but also just didn't do themselves any favors with their build as well. Poor Piper's feet, but hopefully in the next tournament we'll get to see them make a comeback. Now finally, we get to see my knights in shining armor, Jotaro Kujo and Zayt, facing off against some brave up-and-comers. The Weinerdog team wins. Now, going into this, keep in mind that my knights are Masters players, so the Weinerdog's have an uphill battle to climb, but considering, I think they played extremely well. Now, as I've stated before, Stu is a very safe first pick in Brawl because he can switch to his speed gadget if his teammates need walls to thrive, like Larry and Lori. Pearly Whirly can break walls though, so they need to be careful about feeding her in particular, but in general they do have the better draft. Pearly isn't the best in super aggro modes like Brawl. You can use her, but her mechanics are built to reward a very passive playstyle, which means she shines best in modes where she can be more passive, like Gem Grab and Knockout. But she and Spike would struggle into a thrower until Pearl can charge up her first super. But even then, there are some obnoxiously placed unbreakable walls in this map, so it seems like my knights did a very good job thinking through their counter pick. I will say though, True Gold Spike has a certain aura, for sure. We've seen how effective RT can be on this map, so this round was definitely exciting, going back and forth with both teams drafting thrower defenders. I'm still not a big fan of Surge on this map, but if they had second pick, my knights might have picked Surge to deter aggression. Surge will need his super to knock Dynamite out from behind his walls though, so as long as the Wienerdogs manage to use RT's tank form to their advantage, my knights would have a very hard time defending their home zone. But Dynamite is a brawler that takes a significant amount of skill, so while their RT pick was undeniably good, Dyna had a rough time trying to deal with Lori and his twin, so in the end, skill beat draft and my knights walked away with the round. Now for Bounty, it seems both teams stole each other's picks, with the Wienerdogs taking Larry and my Knights stealing Pearly Whirly. Penny has traditionally been a very good pick on this map though, with plenty of walls to stash her turret behind. But paired with Gray, Pearl suddenly had the mobility to surprise attack her opponents by appearing out of nowhere to burn them alive with her gadget cookies. Not to mention, Gray also counters throwers. But Penny's turret kept pushing them further and further into their spawn, so it took a timely activated Gray Super to keep their stars safe until the timer ran out. The Wienerdogs really did have a tough matchup, but they played extremely well despite the odds not being in their favor. Well played, Wienerdog team wins. I hope to see you in the next tournament. Now, in case you were hoping for some comic relief, Kailux and Max were more than willing to supply some. So enjoy some very entertaining troll picks courtesy of the legendary Underdogs. I didn't realize that you could pick Buzz Lightyear in Power Match, so honestly this was my bad, but they still lost. It's I guess it was fine. Did I expect to see Chuck appear in Brawl Ball in this tournament? No. Did Kailux play the train really well? Actually, yeah, he defended like a champ. And yes, Kailux asked me to add this music to this part. I'd never bully my favorite psychic enhancer.
Defeat!
Is Hank good in last off? No, he has no walls. He needs walls. I don't think pulling Pearl with a hypercharge ready was a smart idea. Despite the trolling, I still think legendary Underdogs play well considering the team that they had to face. So after quite a bit of shaming for getting a 102k player to carry them instead of playing the tournament themselves, finally Zix and Aeon are playing together like they should have been the entire time. Because, as I repeat, they are both Masters players. Now this was, I'm not gonna lie, the most passive game of Brawl Ball I think I've seen in a very long time. I think my Knights may have had a better draft. We have Larry, who is really good into Bay and can help deal with Ashe and make up for Stu's lack of DPS, but it seems like instead of trying to push forward, there was a stalemate for the vast majority of the game until the Jobless twins saw their opportunity to move up and score. From that point on, it was incredibly passive again until finally my Knights were mere seconds away from scoring, only for it to be too late. It stayed incredibly passive even in the second round until Zayt, in an attempt to make something happen, used his hypercharge to go after Ashe, but I don't think he realized that Totaro was just taken down, and in doing so left the goal open for the Jobless twins to score. Unfortunate. Now for this round, it seems very clear that the Jobless twins had first pick because they took Larry and Lori from Jotaro, with Barry and Juju also banned from the tournament, and I can only assume Barley and Dynamite banned. Jotaro must have gone with the Willow because she can deal with aggression better than Grom. Where I think they went wrong here is going Surge again. I know they had some success with the Surge in the last round, but they also almost lost with Surge. Because as I said, Surge is very dependent on feeding, and after the most passive game of Brawl Ball, I think it's very safe to assume that the Jobless twins are going to be very passive once more and just not feed supers. Unfortunately, both Willow and Surge are very super dependent, and ultimately, Larry and Lori is just a better thrower than Willow, which gave them an inherent leg up and made it very hard for my Knights to defend their own zone, even after gaining a small lead during the second game. In this round, I don't have any complaints about drafting. I think they had strong drafts on both sides, with Penny Gem Carrier Otis Lane to handle aggression, while my Knights went with a more bold Byron and tank comp, which seemed to me like Jotaro was bringing some NA aggression into their EMEA match. Yes, JoJo is technically NA, but since Zayt threatened to 1v2 the entire tournament, we figured a teammate with potential lag would still be better for Zayt than him having to 1v2. So, taking that into consideration, this back and forth in gem grab is all the more entertaining. I think the problems occurred because they needed Byron to hold on to the gems and for Draco to go on the aggression and protect him. But unfortunately, both games, the gems ended up with Draco, and so Draco couldn't be aggressive, and the Jobless twins were able to invade their spawn and steal back the gems. We kicked off our championship between Team Guzica and the Jobless twins on a map created to showcase skill. After all, it is called No Excuses. However, guess who made another excuse and ran away from the championship like a scared little coward? You're right, Zix did. I guess the only times he dares to show his face in a tournament is when his opponents are legendary players or from another region and might have to deal with lag because of it. But Team Guzica are masters players. Twixen, excuse me if I said that wrong, has 2 prestige badges and peak 11,600 elo in ranked, while his sub-teammate Larry has 100k trophies. So, as you'll see, the Jobless twins can't expect Ian to carry them in the championship. But boy, it's not like they're gonna claim the tournament is like rigged or something when they can't manage to cheat their way to victory, right? Right? But I digress. What do I think about these drafts? Honestly, it seems like the Jobless trio has a much stronger draft in this case. Belle and Gus are very good, but both counter Belle. Because RT is so tanky, it takes a lot of shots for Belle to kill him, and Piper can just use her homemade recipe gadget to 2-tap Belle, while again, Belle has to hit Piper like 3 times. Also, on an open map like this, Belle doesn't get the benefit of her shots bouncing between opponents because it's rare that they will bunch up. Gus is also outranged by both Piper and RT, but does have a shield to make up for it. But on maps where it's very open like this and there isn't much environment to work with, having more range can make or break the game. That was very much the case here in the early game with Piper getting early kills. But having a high bounty on your head can be really dangerous, and Team Guzica managed to close the gap and steal the stars away, which is why if you're down, you should always focus on the player with the most bounty. Then, if you take them down, do everything you can to protect the stars above your head. Again, Bay makes a reappearance, and I know for a fact that she was first picked because the Jobless twins did nothing but complain about the fact that Team Guzica had first pick here. So, again, Philip also gave me another list of brawlers who are good into Bay and hard to counter in Brawl Ball. He said the same, but also Sandy, Spike, Buzz, Buster, Daryl, Amber, Rico, even Miko. Yes, Philip is a poet and he doesn't even know it. There are plenty of ranged brawlers they could have used. The thing is, Bay isn't meta. She is super good in the right hands, but she's not a guaranteed win. There's a lot that play well into her, but she does thrive when the map is more open. Whenever I first pick Bay in Brawl Ball, which is quite often, I do so hoping they're going to pick throwers and short-ranged grass dwellers who thrive when they have walls to use and counter her when there are walls for them to work with. And then I tell Eddie to last pick the Frank, so he can break all of the walls for me and I can in turn counter them. And while yes, this is EMEA, and they play Brawl Ball very differently compared to me and my Brawlentine, but when we play with randoms, we will often have first and last pick, and we draft with the mindset that our random will not do anything probably, so we have to find a way to win with just us. So while throwers are very good into Bay, I want you to pick a thrower, so Bay and the Frank hard counter you together once your walls are gone. This is exactly what Team Guzica did, only seeing as the EU loves playing passive Brawl Ball, they picked Colt to break open the map instead. And you know, that's not to say you can't overcome getting countered with a mixture of smarts and skill. But saying 2v2 drafting is only a matter of pure luck, that is just absolutely untrue. It's blatantly untrue. Having last pick doesn't guarantee a win, and it's only fair that when first pick gets hard countered by the other team, that they should get a counter pick themselves. Now, smart drafters know how to bait the other team into countering them with certain picks. I don't necessarily call myself a smart drafter, but since I have first pick a lot, I do think a lot about how I can bait the other team to play certain brawlers for me to torture. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but in this game, the Jobless trio definitely played extremely well, but they fell for the bait, and that's why they lost. Maybe if they had Philip drafting for them, it would have been a different story. Now again, I know the Jobless trio got second pick because they complained about it. Mind you, this is also the team that brought in a 120k player to carry them to the championship in the first place, so they're absolute nuggets, not even one leg or arm to be found to stand on. They need to be carried around in baskets, not just by Ian. But okay, I'll discuss the draft now. Honestly, I don't like any of their drafts. But I do like the Jobless Trios draft a bit better, actually. Not entirely, but I think it's so fascinating because, like, okay, Gus and Byron, I like those two picks. They're decent. Not the best hot zone picks, but decent. Gus has a shield and Byron has healing, and shields and healing are always desirable in hot zone. However, why are we picking single shot brawlers in hot zone where pierce attacks are supreme? But fine. They're passive EMEA players who play every mode like it's knockout. Fine. In my opinion, the Jobless trio at least had a good predictive counter pick considering the picks that Team Guzica is partial to. So in this case, Melody. Now, is it risky to pick an assassin when the other team has a counter pick? Yes, but as I said in my Fang guide, high risk means high reward. Otis was clearly picked to counter her, but Otis's strength is in his super, and a good Melody can dodge a super easily with her amazing movement. My problem is she has no healing, which is why it's good she has Byron. Still, with good movement, she can dance around both Gus and Otis, and hot zone really requires some element of aggression to help your team push onto the zone, in my opinion. But neither team has anyone who can establish area control whatsoever, which is why these games played out more like knockout than hot zone. Ultimately though, while Ian's melody was fierce, Team Guzica worked together and overcame the aggression together as a team. So congratulations, Team Guzica, you played extremely well and earned your Brawl Pass Plus. Don't worry guys, Larry got his too, just later. I will be holding more tournaments, but first I'm gonna make some guides, so stay tuned. But until then, play later guys. Mwah.